I just wanted a bit of extra money. I've always been a really charismatic guy, not exactly unattractive, and I know how gullible some of those middle-aged, spiritually active women can be. I know I'm an asshole, but I needed the money. I didn't want followers. I wasn't going to make anyone drink poisoned Kool-Aid. I didn't want 100 wives. I was going through a rough patch financially and just wanted a bit of money. To my credit, it worked. It worked well. One of my exes had been real into crystals and astrology and meditation and all that, so I had a pretty good knowledge base to run with. I set up a website, called it Eternal Enlightenment, and paid for an ad service to promote it on various spiritual websites. My business plan was pretty straightforward. I wore a white shirt, white pants, sat cross-legged on some cushions on my apartment balcony at golden hour, and talked into a camera for 30 to 45 minutes about chakras and energies and the power of the divine feminine and how one could achieve enlightenment just like I had. Clips of these videos were available for free on my website, with the full versions and exclusive videos available for $99 a month, only $800 if you paid for an entire year up front. Imagine how well that took off among my target demographic. Enlightenment? Access to secrets of the universe for less than $100 a month. The money came rolling in pretty quickly. I had nearly 40 members after the first 6 months, and triple that at the end of the first year. Things were going really well for a while. I even had some members promoted, telling them and everyone else that they were truly enlightened and would send them out to conferences and things to host talks and Q&As. I even took on a phony Sanskrit name, Sri Deepa, Holy Light, that I said was given to me by Buddhist monks during my training in India. I've never been to India. By the 20-month mark, I was making nearly $75,000 each month, and the lies had grown even more outlandish. I would bathe myself in light in my videos to make it look like I was glowing. I used careful camera angles and more light tricks to make it look like I was hovering a few inches above the cushions I was sitting on. I had even had a place built out in the desert called Sri Deepa's Enlightenment Retreat that I moved to and would host seminars at. Things started to slow down at around 2 years, though. Instead of averaging 30 to 35 new members per month, I was barely getting 2. I knew I needed to avoid stagnation. I needed something big to get people's attention again. I settled on something one of the members of my inner circle called a transmission of enlightenment. I was skeptical at first, but she actually could read Sanskrit and had some book of supposed Buddhist or Hindu magic. To be honest, I thought it would be too outlandish to be believed. Even though I peddled all this esoteric nonsense, I hadn't fallen for it myself and knew or thought that nothing would come of the ritual. I explained this in a roundabout way to avoid exposing myself to this member, and she agreed to be the first person I would transmit enlightenment to. A few days later, everything had been set up at the retreat. It was in a small private room away from the main pavilion where I would host my regular seminars, and it was attended by only a dozen or so members of the inner circle for a hefty price. I had one member operating a spotlight to shine on the volunteer when I touched her to really sell the illusion. Things went well at first. I gave some short speech of gratitude to everyone in attendance, how far they've come, how none of this would be possible without them, and how appreciative their friends and family would be if they were also convinced to sign up to be enlightened for only $99 a month. I was really trying to sell this ritual. I had swapped my normal white clothes for gold and red robes. There was incense burning on a small table between me and my volunteer. The lights were dimmed, and a recording of some chanting was being played at a low volume. She stepped forward, and I butchered some Sanskrit incantation I had poorly memorized from her book. I raised my hands above my head and instructed everyone in the room to fill me with their energies as I reached out and made contact with my volunteer. The tip of my middle finger rested on her forehead for a fraction of a second before she fell to the floor, bathed in the spotlight that had been set up. There was a collective gasp as her body writhed and contorted before going stiff, her eyes rolling back into her head, her body slowly withering into a grayish husk of what it had been before. Thinking on my feet, I instructed a couple of members to take her body away before quickly explaining that she must have had impure intentions. and I quickly shocked myself away to my room. It's been 4 days since the ritual. The skin on my right hand, the hand I touched her with, has turned a sickly gray color and become dry and cracked. It's spread up my arm and I can't move it anymore. Streaks of gray are reaching towards my chest. I've had constant nightmares of horrific creatures ripping at my flesh, tearing me apart. At the time of the ritual, there were about 80 members at my retreat. My inner circle has tried keeping them at bay, but people have questions that I don't have answers to. I know I'm going to die soon, but I'm not sure what is going to kill me. The rot that's consuming my body, or the people I've conned who are banging at my door.